Well, hello everyone. It's good to be back with you after my retreat last weekend, which made it impossible to do satsang on its regular schedule. So it'll be every other week from this point on. It just slid a bit, and this is an interesting one because. I got this question and it really got me thinking about how to teach and really how to learn. If you're on the spiritual path, there's a certain amount of willingness to probe deeply, not just into ourselves, but also into our conventions, the way we think, the way we act, the motivations and the ideas behind all of that. And probably one of the biggest ones is this word mind. And what triggered my thinking about it, and I got several pages here of notes. I don't know if I'll get through them all or not, but what triggered it was a question I got from somebody. Their name on YouTube is Sleep Anxiety, which kind of tells you all you need to know. But he says, "Hi, GP, I really like your videos and also the ones with Lisa. Your videos and also this one helped me a lot with OCD. Now, OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder, where things become very repetitive. You have to, you lock the door 3 times. It becomes kind of ritualistic, and like it's a way of the nervous system for staying safe. I've known several people that had that. So thank you very much for your content. First of all, say English not my native language, so sorry if I make some mistakes," which you didn't. It was perfectly fine. "I have OCD, and a close friend of mine has anxiety disorder. We get to talk about the fact that all of the psychologists and coaches always say something like, the mind works against you, and you are not your mind, etc. This can sometimes make us believe that there is us and that there is this mind and that there are these 2 separate units. I think this can sometimes cause us more anxiety because we begin to think that we have to defeat the mind or that we're at war with it and we have no control over it. But on the other hand, when we experience anxiety or intrusive thoughts, the feeling that we feel is that we really don't have control over it, and that only reinforces that belief that we controlled by the mind and we have to fight with it. So how do we exit this loop of thinking or belief? I'd really love to hear your thoughts about it. Thank you very much." Well, you're very welcome, and you're about to get my thoughts on it. I really started to probe deeply into mind and how the different meanings that it has, and how it's become such a negative thing rather than what it should be is either neutral or another name for the self. We think of it, the saying there that mind works against you, right, does create the sense of there being this entity, this thing that we have to vanquish in order to be happy and prosperous and all of the things we care about. Somehow it's at the root of all of our problems, but it's not actually true. What is at the root is not mind per se, but conditioning, that is persistent patterns of thought. But let's dive a little bit more into it. That notion that the mind is your enemy and you have to vanquish it in some way or control it or do is relative. It's a relatively modern idea. People didn't think in those terms before. It was just your thinking, right? The conditioned patterns just went on. But we have woken up enough as consciousness in general that we understand that that's not really true. We didn't used to think it. Then we started thinking it because we realized that these conditioned patterns of our minds were really causing a lot of mischief and a lot of problems. And so now you can take another step back and see it as nothing but conditioning. It's like, Siri or any of the voices that appear on your on any of the devices you have in your house or your phone. You can ask it a question. It's just a program. There's no entity there. It's just a functioning, and that takes you to a level of abstraction about it, because if you can see it as functioning, it's no longer a thing. It's not an entity that we have to deal with. It's not a problem like that per se. It's not something we have to do battle with, which is really difficult. And if you think the mind is one thing, and you apply a very different kind of techniques or processes or something to heal that, to go beyond it or whatever, you're not ever going to be able to get the results because your understanding of it's off. You're doing something to it as if it were one thing, and it isn't that thing. So you're never ever going to get the results for it. So think of mind as the word for it is abstraction. It's like the wind, right? We say the wind that blows. Well, there's no thing named wind that is the wind, and I'm blowing now. There's no thing there. There's only the blowing. And wind is an abstraction turned into a noun for that which is not a noun. It's a functioning. Mind is the same thing. The word mind refers to nothing but the flow of thoughts. That's all it is. No thoughts, no mind, when you look at it as an abstraction. So mind represents thinking, and forgive me if I refer to my notes. I got a lot here. And you can see how powerful it is in terms of healing and growth when you recognize that, it's just a functioning. I keep getting caught up in it as if it were myself, because Siri uses the word I. Right? Siri says, I don't know. Thank you. This is, I feel really good today. Thank you. But there's nobody there. If you realize that is the way the thought patterns work, there's an enormous amount of freedom that comes from that. And so then the term as an abstraction becomes quite generic, right? It's the same term, good thoughts or bad thoughts. Like the wind, right? The word wind, if it's hurricane force winds or if it's a gentle breeze that you're really enjoying. So mind, like wind, is neither negative or positive. It is simply a functioning, a functioning without feeling. So then there's another way of looking at mind, which is the traditional way in which Buddhists look at it. In Chinese, the symbol for mind and the symbol for heart are the same symbol. There isn't this kind of division in our feelings and our thinking that we have here in the West. And in Buddhism, they actually use the mind the way modern spiritual teachers like myself use the word consciousness or awareness. In fact, here's a quote from a 19th century Tibetan Buddhist master named Patrul Rinpoche. He said, you won't find the mind by searching for it. Or I can add, trying to control it. Mind has always been empty. That is, it has no inherent meaning. There's no need to search. It is the very one who searches. Simply settle, without distraction, directly into the searcher. Now that's a completely different way of looking at it, isn't it? Right? Oh, mind. There's me, and what am I looking for? I'm looking for the pure essence of myself. And he's pointing out that it is the mind you're looking for is the one who's looking. So settle in even to the searching. Now this is from Tulku Urgan, another Rinpoche, another of the Tibetan tradition. He says, our Buddha nature is never separate from our minds. Here's one from Huang Po, a Zen master, 900 or something like that, very older one, yeah. All the Buddhas and all sentient beings are nothing but the one mind, besides which nothing exists. This mind, which is without beginning, is unborn and indestructible. And later on in the same work, he says, this one mind alone is the Buddha. So now we hear when somebody says something, the mind is working against you. They're giving you a concept of mind as an entity. They say you're not your mind. Still giving you a concept of your entity, although it's an open door to a little bit of freedom there. When you see it as a function, then you see it's just, you don't have to pay attention any more than to what it has to say, because it's just repetitive. It's just doing what it was programmed to do. And you can clearly discern that that programming isn't really adequate for who you are now. That recognition of that is what they would refer to as the Buddha, as pure mind, as real mind, as pure consciousness. So in this sense, mind, self-awareness, consciousness, pure being is all the same. So now you can see, the reason I'm going through this is so that we don't get tangled up into words. I don't want you hung up on the words as if words had some absolute meaning. They don't. They change constantly. And so we're kind of in the business of discovering, well, when I use this word, what does it actually mean? I don't want to have assumptions about it, because if I do, it's going to end up leading to behaviors and attempts at healing and awakening that are going to be futile. They're not going to work. So let's see here. I don't need to talk about that. Throw that note out. Any others here? Yeah. So mind and consciousness, pure mind, essential mind, is the same. They're the same. Right? We're trying to get away from the thought patterns and definitions of myself that have been conditioned by the patterns of thought. So that when the word I appears in your mind, and it appears all day long, even if you say you, the I is implied, isn't it? Right? Because it's second person, right? There's no you without an I. So everything you say, every thought you have revolves around this sense of I. It would behoove us to know what the hell it is. What are we talking about, right? So hopefully as I'm speaking now, you get a sense there's no entity there that we have to deal with. There's only our concepts that we have to deal with, and how we have become dependent upon and entangled with and identified with a sense of self or a sense of I that is nothing but a thought. Right? The thought I represents a functioning, which is the functioning of the sense of self within the body-mind mechanism. There's not actually an I there. The I is always the one who is seeing. Again, remember what Patrul Rinpoche said, mind has always been empty. That is, it is free of any inherent nature. There is no need to search. The very one who searches, it is the very one who searches. And this is a really good one. There's a practice right here with, again, from Huang Po. He said, if they put a stop to conceptual thought and forget their anxiety, the Buddha will appear before them. For this mind is the Buddha, and the Buddha is all living things. You notice the activity that you have right now, the questions. The sense of seeking, the wanting to know. Right? Sink directly into that sense of wanting to know. Right? Don't turn it into a quest, but instead turn your attention towards the one who wants to know. Right? That's far closer to the one who knows than the one who then simply focusing on the seeking itself. I'm not saying put a stop to seeking. Don't. Not until the mission is complete. But turn the attention from the seeking to the seeker. We don't have to stop the mind. We don't have to recognize its true nature, which is, in fact, the nature of all things. The nature of mind is all there is. Nothing but mind is a Buddhist tenet. Putting a stop to conceptual thought, don't do it through a battle, but by recognizing that's all it is. Patterns of thought, nothing else. You find your mind is the Buddha. That is the true nature of all things. The Buddha is not a person that existed 2,500 years ago. That's the historical figure who represented it, like Jesus was the historical figure that represented Christ, which is the true knowledge of being. So if we think of ourselves as the I that appears in the mind, it's going to be a foe. It's going to be an enemy, right? Mind is empty, remember? So if I see it as something I have to deal with, it's my enemy. But if I see it as something like, oh, I can change my thinking and manifest everything I want, the creative power of the whole thing, now it becomes a friend, right? Mind is just flipped, right? If we think of it as both, or excuse me, as both, yeah, we're stuck on the wheel. We're forever ping-ponging back and forth. Is my friend or is my foe? Is my friend? Is my foe? Right? This is Shiva's wheel that we get stuck on. And if we think of it as neither, try to think of it as neither, there's a denial of our own experience, which is nihilism, which is you get kind of lost in the nothingness or stuck in the absolute. And in Zen, they would say he stinks of Zen, because that's exactly what happens. So there's really no need to think of it at all. There's no need to rely on thinking, only on seeing. Okay? Your mind, like everything else in the universe, when it is boiled down to its essence, is the self. It's you. It's who you really are. Mind is an aspect of this fullness and expanse, this indefinable expanse of being. It's the aspect of, you could think of it as just the active creation that is emerged out of that which is unborn and uncreated. That's the true mind, the true self. So on that note, I'm going to leave it. I have finished through my notes. I skipped a whole bunch of them. They weren't really relevant in the moment, and hopefully my screen is big enough here that I can read properly. Yeah, I accidentally put in 11 p.m. I didn't notice the little PM thing on the side. Damn. So hopefully everybody figured out that it's not at 11 p.m. tonight, that it's right now. So let's see. Hello, Rosario. Hello, Mary in the sun. As you can see, it's not sunny here. It's sunny and cold here in the Pacific Northwest. Hello, Ava in Poland. Robbie in Romania. David and Elaine. Hello, good friends. Merck in Sweden. Dorte in Denmark. There's Daryl in Maryland. Roberto is in Grenada now. Fantastic. Great question about OCD. Thanks, GP. There are some teachers teach that OCD thoughts can be caused by negative hyperdimensional forces. I had somebody I worked with privately recently who was concerned about that, about astral entities and astral characters. Hopefully what I just said kind of puts that in its place. Remember, the mind, consciousness, is so powerful that if I believe something, it's going to shape my perception and it's going to become true. It's going to literally become active in my consciousness, which means in my body, in my life. So I'm going to have experiences that I'm going to attribute to some external entity. And in fact, there is no entity there. It's completely of my own creation. It's like, wow, really? Yeah, really. If you grasp that, you realize exactly how free and how powerful you actually are. It's mind-blowing. There's nothing in your life that isn't a direct creation of you, done in ways that are ignorant. And it happens because of identification with the I. You are the I am prior to the I am. In meditation, I've done a couple of meditations recently just on the sense of I am. Because you'll see, prior to any particular identification, right, that I am this or that, right, there's simply the sense I am. Once I am, I step out of that pure sense of I am, I become someone. When I become someone, I now have a relationship with a universe that I have created simply by the act of identifying myself as someone, as a person. So if I'm this person, there can be other persons, right? And it doesn't have to just be persons. It can be entities. It can be fifth dimensional beings. It can be aliens. It can be anything, right? Because now I am this. And the moment I am this, the universe is going to look like the not me, everything that isn't me, but is influential. Why, coming back to that pure sense of I am, full stop. It's the most powerful meditation you can do. Whenever I do a meditation, you'll notice that I'm forever bringing attention away from thought, away from feeling, emotions, and away from sensations. So that there's simply a sense of being. Now that sense of being you can ultimately go beyond, but you can't do that. You can't make yourself go beyond that into the absolute. What has to happen is that attention becomes so absorbed in the sense I am that it begins to dissolve. And you see that everything in your universe is that I am. There's nothing other than that. It looks like there is. And there's an appearance of me being a body with a mind in a universe. But that's only how it appears. That is simply that first sense of I am, which then creates a universe, which it then loses itself in, forgets who it is, until the play has run its course and it begins to dawn, well, this isn't who I am. There's stories of even Shiva taking human form, once as a pig. And Vishnu and Brahma had to actually beat up the pig to get Vishnu to get Shiva to let go. He's having so much pleasure at being a mother pig. So there's these stories. Even the gods get lost in the experience. It's like a dream. You get totally involved in it until you realize it's a dream. And lucid dreaming, of course, that's kind of where we are. The awakening is kind of a lucid dream, and you find yourself falling into it, falling back out of it, I just kind of went off on that whole thing just about entities. So the bottom line is there are no entities. There's only one entity, and that is you, the self. When I say you, I am not talking about a person. I'm not talking about the concept of you. I'm not talking about the idea of I. I am talking about the reality of I, which is the shared being we all have, which is the Buddha, which is the self, the one and only. So anyway, I went off on that. Hopefully it was useful, Mary and others. Roberto, the point is, how do we choose what we think if our thinking is based on our belief? How do we change our beliefs then? Would you explain in plain words what an egregor is, GP? Well, maybe that's Evan Gregor, who was really my senior student, who's gone off on his own now. I'm happy to say. But well, you have to discover the belief, right? The beliefs operate under the surface. They influence thoughts. They influence perception. So they're not something that you can. They're not really mental. They're not really I believe this or that. right? That comes later when you discover that these are deep beliefs that are really a view of how you see the world. And the deepest belief at all is the sense, I am a person. I am this body. I am this mind. So if you start there, well, what if I'm not this mind? What if the mind is just what I'm looking at? And then I see reflected in the mind the beliefs that have accumulated in the nervous system. For instance, the child that is always put to shame for whatever reason, subtly or overtly, is going to grow up with a feeling, I'm not enough, right? You're going to have, and you're not going to be aware of it because the identity forms around it and completely obscures the fact that there's a belief there that I'm not enough. It's assumed to be true, not a belief. And that's why they're so sticky. It's not like, oh, I have this belief. The moment you see you have a belief, it becomes, you can work with it. It's manageable, but you don't see it. It's just assumed. And it's assumed not by the mind, but the whole body. It acts as if somebody who's ashamed. It behaves as if somebody who isn't enough. It's constantly interacting with the environment as that person. And awakening is when we become conscious that this is the functioning that's going on. This is what is happening. This is what's creating thoughts and beliefs and circumstances and all of that. And then comes the discipline and the practice of, I'm not that. The shame that I experienced that caused me to feel that way was not of my making. It's not because I'm really shameful. It's because I did not appeal to or conform to what was expected from the environment around me. And therefore I took on myself the notion that somehow I was flawed. And that became the pattern that I lived out until I saw that, wait a minute, that's not who I am. That's not who I was. It was environmental. It was my reaction to the circumstance coming from my total dependency and vulnerability. And it was never who I really was. That begins to unravel the belief and all of its tentacles that are spread throughout your entire nervous system. Because it isn't, oh, I see now. And it doesn't magically go away. The behaviors that have been in place and well practiced for decades will continue, which is why it becomes a practice of continually deepening your seeing. Oh, this isn't who I am. This isn't who I am. Boy, it sure feels that way. But who's aware of the feeling? Oh, there's something even deeper aware of this feeling. And if there wasn't anything deeper there, you couldn't challenge the conditioned beliefs. Right? You'd be like a dog. Once you're trained, you're trained. You respond to the commands. You respond to the gestures. Period. You don't have enough consciousness to be able to say, I don't want to chase the ball. Get your own damn ball. We do. You do. But now it becomes one of enormous love, of enormous patience. This can only be unseated. These deeply rooted energetic patterns can only be unseated by incredible love, by just by learning, practicing loving awareness, kindness in all aspects, starting with ourselves, starting with the fact that, yeah, I'm in this experience. It's completely foreign to me. This isn't who I want to be. And yet it keeps happening over and over again. I can either fight with myself about it, or I can sink into it with love and go, well, yeah, this is what's happening now. Okay. I'm just going to let this happen. And I'm going to sink into the one who lets it happen. That's love. And that is the only thing that will heal it. Absolutely. The only thing. Yeah. So you explain in plain words what an egregor is. Yeah, that's all I know is Evan Gregor, my student who's now a teacher on his own right. There's also religious OCD, says Mary. Yes, there is. Well, any a great deal of oppression, be it come from a very oppressive religion, or household beliefs, any kind of thing that creates an oppressive environment where you can't be yourself, is going to, one of the ways in which it can uh, present itself, become symptomatic, is that you're forever second guessing yourself. The person who has OCD, did I lock the door? Am I sure the door is locked? Because the sense of their own value, their own well-being has been so crippled that there's no confidence in it, that what they're doing, they've done. There's no confidence that they're safe. Over and over and over again, am I safe? Am I really safe? Because that capacity for self-validation has been weakened, and in some cases, just completely buried, which is what very fundamentalist, strict religions do. They don't want you to self-validate. You must be validated by the church, by its laws, by the scriptures, and whoever's interpreting the scriptures according to how they see it. That's the way you are supposed to be valid. That is your not you. So there's no freedom there. There's no real free will in that, although they preach as if it's free will. They're only focused on free will, disobeying the rules. So out of that arises all sorts of destructive patterns and dysfunctions and pains and sorrows and physical illnesses as well. And so OCD being just one of them, anxiety being another. There's always the sense that, God is watching my thoughts. Did I do something wrong? Am I going to go to hell, or be punished in some way? Am I going to lose? God's going to take away my livelihood or something. We have to get deep into the nervous system where these things are living, and to root them through love, through wisdom, through understanding, through reason and logic, looking at the things logically, but even with the logic, then taking it a step further into beginning to just remove that from the whole energy system, and that becomes the practice, that becomes the process. But it's beautiful because it bears fruit every step along the way. It's not like you have to go through this and then you get the reward at the end. It every step, every time, there's a little more opening, a little bit more opening, and you can see it. And you've seen it happen in your own life, Mary. Yes, there's opening that wasn't there a couple of years ago. Right? You go, yep, this is the encouragement. Yep, you're on the path. Press on. Right? Hello, Denise. I'm getting stars and hearts and think. Wonderful. Right. How does one deal with the emotions that come with the OCD thoughts that make them appear real? I'm not only asking for myself, but asking for a friend. Please speak about the physical aspects of OCD, because it indeed creates them. It's always thinking about those teachers that believed that as other forces, that's all that they will ever see, that's the cause for all of our issues, because this is how they approach these issues. Yes, the phenomena is there, right? There's a phenomenon of things happening to us that we don't seem like we're causing, because we don't understand causal connection. We don't understand the power of the mind. And so we look at it and we assume it to be some kind of entity or force or character or government or economic system or whatever it might be. Got to keep the blanket, my little blankie over my feet, because it's chilly. It's chilly in here. And so the phenomena is there. There are things happening to us. There are things that arise in our life and we don't know where they came from, because we're completely ignorant of our relationship to it and the power of the mind. And so not knowing that and assuming that there is this external objective universe out there with stuff in it, because that's a fundamental assumption, the materialistic view, we then begin to interpret things that are happening from that point of view, and therefore, there's entities. Now, in some instances, purely materialistic would say, no, there's no entities out there, because they'd have to have some kind of physical characteristics. The psychologist might call it something else, right? A Jungian psychologist might call it something else, some kind of an archetype or so, all of which are valid, right? But understanding that they're all a projection of you. So we have that experience. And we have that experience, just to answer your question about OCD, it isn't just in the mind, it's in the emotions and in the body. Your body wants to do the repetitive actions that are associated with OCD. It wants to do them, right? Because in the doing of them, it reconnects to the one thing it didn't get, which caused it in the first place, a sense of safety. It's the most safety it can get. Now, it isn't purely safe, because it wouldn't need the behaviors. But it's a little bit more safe, which makes it possible to function, right? So if I go through all these rituals and rites and different things, and it takes me 2 hours to leave the house, I eventually get to leave the house. I just have to plan well in advance. Eventually I do. I get to the point where, okay, I can leave now. It's not completely crippling. I know of one beautiful instance that was healed through EFT. Dr. David Lake. David Lake? Yeah, David Lake. It's an Australian guy. He's retired now from EFT, but he was brilliant with EFT. And he had a woman who had OCD, and all he had her do was tap like this on the side of her fingers while she was going through all of her rituals. It took her 2 hours to leave the house. That's all he told her to do. No special process, nothing. Just while you're doing it, do this, which she did. A couple of weeks later, she was down to 1 hour. A couple of weeks later, it's down to like half hour. Then she called him one day and says, how long does it normally take people to leave the house? It was 15 minutes. She says, oh, I'm leaving the house in 15 minutes. But she didn't do anything. But what this does is it tells the nervous system, you're safe. So while she was going through the whole process, the body was getting this message, you're safe, you're safe, you're safe. Bypassing the mind, because the mind doesn't think it is, and it was having an effect. The nervous system was adjusting to it, as it always does. It's always perfectly adaptive. And so that's why my emphasis constantly on safety, and the fact that you are through means that you don't understand, creating your experience. Because you don't understand it, you think the experience is somehow happening to you, when it's a projection of you. Now, don't take that to mean the whole law of attraction thing, which then tries to take it and make it a personal power of the ego, which then allows it to try to get everything that it wants. That is a trap. Instead, you go, oh, so let's be really fascinated by the fact that it's a projection, and turn our attention to the projector. That's where the action is. Don't just try to make a different movie, because you'll just get all tangled up in the weeds. Instead, wait, if it's well then who am I? Who am I that is projecting it? What is this incredible power? And if you do that, you're on the right path. So, let's see. Did I cover that? I think I did. Hello, Ida, Catherine Angel. Yeah. I think I'm saying hi to everybody. Love you too, Brent. I keep saying that. Brent French. Just abbreviate. French. You're French. Beth Tucker. Hi, Beth. Hand purple blue piece. Thank you. Robbie, can someone be forced to do something without their complete approval, with the promise that after that it will make sense, without having resentment, like being told to sacrifice from the future? Sacrifice for the future. Well, ultimately, no, we cannot be forced. But we can sometimes experience consequences of things, and the consequence of claiming your free agency and not being forced and refusing to be forced can be more severe than being forced. This is just the nature of things. A great example of it, one of the most beautiful of all, is Nelson Mandela, who, as a political prisoner, he broke no laws, right? But he was actively engaged in trying to win equality and freedom for blacks in their home country, South Africa. And because of that, he was sent to prison for 27 years. Robben Island prison, hard labor. I mean, the days were spent breaking big rocks into little rocks. And so he was forced into surgery. He had no choice but to go. Right? He was just there. So what does he do then? Right? Does he just ruminate, become bitter, angry about what had happened to him, marking out off the days of the calendar until he dies? He chose a very different path, very different. He decided that it was going to be, that nothing was going to make him not love. And he took total command of himself, so that when he emerged, he had nothing but love for his captors. I mean, the guards just became absolutely infatuated with him. And when he left, he became president of the country when apartheid finally was broken down. He invited all of the white Secret Service agents to stay and serve the presidency. And he had every right to be just totally bitter, but he was captain of his own soul. And that's what he chose to do. So there will be times in life when we're forced to do things that we really don't want to do. How about taxes every year? Right? I mean, it's just a fact. Now, sacrificing now for the future that's kind of a different thing. You're not forced into that, right? People may coerce you and think you should do that. And of course, maybe you should. Maybe you should save for the future. I mean, if you spend any time meditating and you decide you're going to do that, oftentimes there's not an immediate return on investment on that. You're looking for the future. You're looking for the long-term cumulative effects that such a practice is going to have. And so you are consciously making a choice to let go of one thing in favor of another. This is the spiritual path. We are consciously letting go of the habit energy and the choice to be a person in a world struggling in exchange for a deeper sense of who we actually are. It can feel like a sacrifice, a surrender at times, because the ego, which is a pattern in the nervous system, isn't quick to let go, because its whole nature was self-protection. And so when you begin to move away from that personal sense of self, which is the ego, it's at first going to be felt as if it is a threat to life and limb, even though there's a realization now that I'm more than that, at least. And so now it becomes the loving engagement with the very mechanism that we call the ego, to show it that it is safe to do this. And to keep doing that until you completely transcend the whole sense of being a person at all, being a human, having been born and going to die. Or the body just falls away, and with it all of the habit energy and everything. And there's a completely different experience, which is another opportunity to simply let go of it all. Does that answer it for you? Robbie from Romania? Hopefully. Let me know if not. Mary, you're right about self-validation. That really hit home. Thank you. Well, yes, that is what the religions, even the religions that claim for, free agency, free will, right? Explore and come to your own conclusion. That's the last thing they want you to do. Right? Threat after threat after threat. Don't think, believe. It's like, whoa, faith has become this blindness. You just accept it as is. And there's always severe consequences for denying it, isn't there? It's not, they're not mild. Oh, you're going to have a little trouble, right? It's no, eternal pain and suffering. Wow. Madness. Mary also says, my Ayurvedic practitioner gave me a very beautiful thing to do that worked for me while I was having the OCD thoughts continued. I don't see it continued. Hopefully I'm still online. I appear to be. Hopefully I still am. If somebody, because I'm not seeing anything else come up here. And there hasn't been for, well, just a minute. So I'll let Mary finish up before I check. And anybody else too, because that is the end of the question queue. So I'm not against any practice. Be it some, yeah, nobody's saying a thing to me. So I am going to check here really quick and see if in fact I have gone offline for some reason. It does happen occasionally. So I have to, this is interesting. I suppose I could do this instead. I can just go here and view on YouTube and just see if I'm there. Yeah, I appear to still be there. So, all right. Well, you know, Ayurveda, it's beautiful. I did a 3-day Ayurveda retreat once, which was really marvelous, extremely healthy. Like all practices, any practice that we use to help the nervous system let go of its habits, it's a big thumbs up from me. That's why I use tapping. Right? We just have to recognize that that's not the same as the spiritual inquiry, nor is it it's not the same process, nor is it the same objective. The objective to calm the nervous system is great. It's one thing. But the purpose of meditation, which is also used for stress relief and that sort of thing, the purpose of it, ultimately, of a spiritual practice, is to realize who you are. Realize that you are not your body. The very fact that I can apply a process that has a relaxing and a healing effect on the body should indicate I'm not the body. I'm something else, applying something to the body. Who is that? That becomes the ultimate question. And there's the difference. This is where genuine spirituality, non-duality, and everything else just basically diverge. Because the purpose of spirituality is to know who you are. To know the one who is behind the searching, who's behind the healing, who is behind all the conditioning, the one who is aware of being aware. That is the whole point. Looks like I got stuff back. I am online. Good, thank you. Thank you, Ava. He told me to think of them as a bucking horse in a corral and just open the gate and let him go. I like that. And instantly they drop to the point that the rituals and guilt about them having them were gone. Yeah, because nothing that the nervous system does is what's causing the distress. It's thinking that it should be something else. And the moment you're like, oh, this is simply what the nervous system is doing, you open the corral, just let it do it. right? And you just sink in the place of being the witness of it. And eventually you'll notice that there's that going on, and it's not touching the witness any more than the most severe storm is touching the sky. The storm clears, the sky is still there, completely untouched, unmoved. And who is that? That's just what I want to, yes, that's an experience that can be had as we let go of these things. But who is that? Who is the witness? Who are you? Right? Mary is what's being witnessed. Brent, Beth, everybody who's here, right? The name is what's being witnessed. That which is witnessing doesn't have a name. The sense I am doesn't have a name. Right? That came later. The first experience we all have is I am. Right? Now, who is it that's even experiencing that? You don't have to go there quite yet. But this is why it's a spiritual trek. Healing happens along the way. Right? It's part of the deal. It comes with the territory. And it's important to it. We can't neglect these things. But it's not the point. The point isn't to have a better functioning body or mind or nervous system or any of that. That's a byproduct. The point is to know who you are. That which is aware. That which could even decide my nervous system needs help. Right? What is that? Who is that? Who's the one searching? Who's the one asking? These are deep and probing questions that it can take some time to get into the groove where that is where the attention goes. And eventually, even in our meditations, it withdraws even from the sense I am, to noticing that there's something aware of even the most subtle sense there is. I am, or Om if you prefer. What's aware of Om when it arises? Now, you can't get to that. There's no practice for that other than to simply stay completely focused till it becomes one-pointed on the sense of I am, at which point it will dissolve into the infinite. Beth, I finally caught you live, but it looks like the end of the talk. No, it's not. The end of talk? No, it's not. I'm still here, still going. It's not even an hour yet. If there's enough questions, I'll just continue up to 2+ I have, but if there aren't, I don't mind scaling it back. So I'm glad you caught me live, and maybe you have a question. Non-duality. Here's a question direct from non-duality itself. Isn't that great? Hey, GP, the interesting journey is truly understanding we are the projector. But is it valid to manifest situations, experiences, to further joy, awareness, etc.? My awareness of myself as oneness is leading to allowing more freedom and joy in the dream, in that it is reflecting the non-dual. Yes, of course. Of course. Here's the deal. Don't get fascinated by the wake, right? You get into a boat to go somewhere. When you do that, you'll make a wake. Nobody gets in a boat to make a wake. When you start taking on this freedom, this self-knowledge as a means of making things happen, you've gotten absorbed into the wake. You've kind of fallen into the trap of manifestation, on law of attraction, and all of that kind of thing, which is simply the personal sense of self wanting to be more free, whereas true freedom is from the personal sense of self. But of course, when we embrace human life as it is, without the personal sense of self, we realize it's full of desire and aspiration and ambitions. It needs joy. It needs self-expression. It needs companion and intimacy and all of that. And so it becomes a matter of embracing everything that's human without getting stuck in it. Right? It's embracing every song and piece of music without thinking that that's all there is to the music, right? Without losing track of the principle behind which all of this is happening. And this is why it can be delicate. This is why one can get stuck in the absolute, which is a complete denial of everything human. So it's why I much prefer the Buddhism and Zen in particular to most of the non-dual teachers, which are lost in the absolute. Not all. There's many that aren't, like myself and several others that many of you know, that are lost in that are the middle way, that which is neither absolute nor relative, right? Mind, not friend, not foe, not both, not neither. It's this other place, right? That is a total embrace of the experience of being human, which of course there wouldn't be any experience at all were it not for this apparent duality, which emerged directly out of the non-duality, and then you transcend both. It's neither absolute nor relative. It's neither non-dual nor dual. It neither exists nor does not exist. You're in the realm of this pure Zen or Sufi mysticism. It's just, oh, it's just this. It's the one. Who is the one? I am the one. It is just the I am knowing itself. And that which actually is beyond all the expression of it. Like, think of music without a song. Can't do it. Nor can you separate the song from this principle of music. And so, yeah, embrace all of human life. And we will find, as we do that the patterns of identification and preference and wanting to grab onto things will arise. Oh, yeah, there it is. There it is. So it's a matter of loving and letting go, loving and letting go, letting what comes come and letting what goes go in total equanimity, but feeling the happiness and fun and ecstasy and turn on when something comes into your life, and the grief and the sense of loss and the disappointments when they pass away. And realize that I'm a witness of all of that. The ups and the downs, the joy and the grief, the intimacy and the alienation, the fame and the disrepute. I'm aware of all of them. What's aware? You can't pinpoint it. It doesn't belong in any camp. It's beyond categorization. That is the true self. That is what you are. Everything else is how you appear. The universe is you as you actually are, knowing yourself in the only way you can be known. The flash of the constant recreation of the universe. Which, by the way, science says the same thing. You know, science used to go looking for the ultimate particle, right? The God particle, right? You know, starting back in the Greeks, 3,000, the whole classical analysis. What is all of this made of? Right? Looking for something, right? And now over time, it's like, there is no thing there, right? There's nothing there. It was Niels Bohr, him and Max Planck that created quantum theory, says that which we regard as real is made of things that we cannot regard as real. It's this world in which everything is coming into existence and going out of existence, just blindingly fast, that appears then, for this level of perception, to be a form with continuity. It's not, any more than the movie is the static thing. It's a constantly refreshing thing, like your computer monitor that you're looking at. The screen, even the stuff that doesn't appear to be moving on your screen, is in fact a picture that's being recreated 60 times a second. The entire universe is that. The self, the reality that is manifesting itself constantly replenishing it. There's never a thing that ever gets created. It is always just this fresh image. Any more than there's no thing on your screen. It is the screen. And if we pay more attention to the screen than what's on the screen, you'll find yourself back home to what you really are. Wow. That was fun. Found my cursor. Beth, do we have to work on personal neuroses first? No, no. For self-realization. So if we continued self-inquiry, will the anxiety, etc., drop off when we know who we are, or do we have to work on personal neuroses first? The self-inquiry reveals who you really are. When you come to start seeing who you really are, which is the consciousness that is aware of these things, there is a power that emerges that allows you to intelligently and, more importantly, lovingly respond to and deal with your neuroses. And what's a neuroses? They're just habits and patterns that emerge. And if we can deal with them as with love, they become quirks. Yeah, some of them tend to be more self-destructive. So we lovingly embrace that aspect of ourselves, because the neuroses all arose out of the the fact we didn't have freedom or the safety to simply be ourselves, to let life flow as it does, because of our religious upbringing, cultural and economic, the whole setting in which your human life has appeared has forced you into particular patterns that have not been native to you. They're not your natural way. They're not your natural state. Tootsies are getting cold. And as you discover that, I'm not my conditioned patterns. I am not my neuroses. Right? There's a power that emerges that allows you to lovingly deal with them and bring the whole nervous system back into a state of self-regulation, of self-validation. So it is healing, but what's doing the healing is the conscious awareness of who you are. So they happen simultaneously. And at first, it's always kind of amazing to people when they get some enormous insight, some enormous awakening, right? Even just, days of experiencing nothing but the pure oneness of all being. And then suddenly you find the neuroses are still there. So at that moment, the requirement is don't get rid of the neuroses. It's to begin to love the human nervous system, which formed into that. Oh, this is what it does. This is how the nervous system, the whole energy system, responds to the environment in order to keep itself safe. I now know that's not who I am. So I can lovingly engage with it. So I love to use the analogy of the rescue dog. Right? At this point, you're the benevolent rescuer who's come across the rescue dog that's very afraid, that doesn't get, you raise your hand and it cowls. What do you do with it? You become the one with the capacity to love that thing back into health, right? Because everything responds to love, including the nervous system. And when there's enough of that, enough safety, enough love, the nervous system will begin all by itself to let go of the neuroses, because they're nothing but protective mechanisms that have gotten programmed into the system and became regular automatic behaviors that we then identified and formed a sense of identity about. Self-inquiry removes that removes the sense of identity from the conditioning, and then little by little gets the power to love the conditioned self, that sense of self, the nervous system and its functioning, back into a state, its natural state of equanimity and poise and confidence and self-expression. It becomes a vehicle for self-expression, which is what the human system is. That's the point, right? It's so I can do this, take this away, and I don't have anything to say, right? There's no vehicle for me to say it. I'm a pianist without a piano, I'm become an air guitarist. right? This is the whole real point. But in order for that to happen, the whole energy system, the body-mind mechanism must first make itself survive. And that's the whole safety mechanism of it. We transcend that and move from self-protection to self-expression. Does that answer it for you, Beth? And thank you for that wonderful question. Oh, there's Lisa. Hello, everyone from Canada. Been watching Last Tea with G. Great. My business partner. Robbie, thank you for answering. Like you've said, the idea of sacrifice of any nature feels like a loss for the ego. My guess is for such times is to gather understanding, to ease the situation and decision. Yes, you make the wisest decision you can in the moment. Right? And then let it go, because it won't be the wisest decision when you look back on it 5 years from now. You go, wow, God, what was I thinking? But at the moment, that's all you can do. You cannot make a choice today based on what you're going to be aware of and experienced with 5 years from now. That will only happen because this happens now. So you make your best guess, and leave the rest to God. Sarah, hello, Sarah. I'm so glad I caught you, GP. Your advice was perfect and ultimately effective, and we can't thank you enough. The awful attachment got bored and left. My little Willow gave you a nickname, Grandpa Peace. Oh, good God. I have another granddaughter, Grandpa Peace. The awful attachment got bored and left. Yay. Yay. Notice you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to make anything happen. It was all just the self-acceptance, which is self-love. That's real self-love, self-acceptance. Grandpa Peace. I will cherish that, Willow. And it's really delightful for me to know that you're listening and it's touching you. And don't be afraid of your gifts. Don't be afraid of them. Be discreet. Don't be overt about it. And give yourself some time, and perhaps a little exposure to those who can help you with really allowing them to bear fruit without causing you any suffering. So that's the point. Mary says hello to Lisa J. I think you answered my question, G. I felt like the emotional work was kind of downplaying the awakening, therefore making it confusing whether if you're going in the right direction. Oh, I'm glad, yeah, that it helped. The primary thing is to know who you are. The side effect is that and part of the process of knowing who you are is becoming increasingly aware of what you're not, of who you're not. Oh, I'm not this mind. And in this case, I'm using mind in terms of I'm not just these thoughts, these repetitive conditioned thoughts. And yet thoughts all revolve around the sense of I. There's a sense of I there. That I is the one that has all the neuroses, and it's not me. But that insight itself is not enough to unseat it, because the nervous system needs to feel safe. And so you've got this thing going on, right? There is the awakening of the mind and the awakening of the heart. There's awakening to the true nature of mind and the true nature of heart. Remember, I mentioned that in Chinese, the symbol for heart and the symbol of mind are the same symbol. And so when you're reading the older Buddhist texts and the like, or even you might even like Taoist texts, you're going to see where it refers to mind and realize they're referring to this flow that we in the West see it as two separate things, right? There's feeling and love and sentimentality, and then there's logic and precision and all of this stuff, as if they're two different things. They dance. They have to dance together, right? That kind of open-heartedness without wisdom will get itself hurt really badly, as many people have discovered. I've worked with people who, I want to be really open-hearted, and they just destroyed in a relationship because the wisdom was lacking, right? Give too much too soon. Slow down. Be wise. Test the waters. But wisdom, that is that precision and insight, without heart, you make atomic bombs. you become a war economy, right? That's intelligence without the balance of it. That's not really wisdom. Wisdom is when that precision of heart and the openness of mind are so enmeshed that they are one. You don't have heart and mind. You don't have wisdom and compassion. It is just, that's the Buddha nature. And so there will be times when there must be more emphasis. This is part of the freedom of the flow. It's not, I'm always, right? Sometimes I'm going to be leaning more towards the therapeutic. I'm going to have to do more tapping, or I'm going to need to eat better, right? I'm going to have to get some nutritional advice, which we're going to be actually putting up on the school. We're going to have a whole new section about spiritual nourishment, right? But I digress. for a little promo this week, brought to you by. But at any rate, sometimes we have to emphasize that and look at those things, right? And then sometimes we completely ignore all of that, and it's purely focused on non-dual self-inquiry. And the wisdom is what can flow back and forth, right? Because both are heart, both are wise, both. That what does this moment need most right now? And that's the beautiful middle way. That's the Buddha mind. And this is what is your true mind right now. That is what has been and has been guiding the whole process. It's what inspired the question, the insight, the inquiry. It's why you're on the path. You didn't choose this. Nobody does. The one you will eventually realize you are is the one who's been orchestrating the whole thing all along. Let's see. What about the 7 Hermetic principles? I'm not really familiar with those. I know a little bit about the Hermeticism and the like, and it's kind of a form of no, I shouldn't say. I really don't know enough to comment about those, Robin. So if you tell me what they are, maybe I can add a little insight. But right now, I think I should just say I don't know them well enough to speak on them. Samat, hi G. Any advice on how to accept fear? Well, the first thing is just start with, oh, fear is here. Right? If you mean by fear, I accept that it's here. You don't have to, right? You can just start with acknowledging that it is here. Oh, there's fear. Whoa, that feels horrible. Yep, it feels horrible. What is fear? Oh, the fear is there's something here that it can hurt me in some way, and I want to get away from it. So there's a sensation of fear in the body that I got to get away from it, which is quite natural, isn't it? Right? If I'm being chased by a bear, it's exactly what I want to be feeling. It's the physiological sense the body is putting all of its energy into running away. Right? Now, when it's caused by beliefs and psychological things and conditioned patterns, we can't run away from those, right? So this is a different thing altogether. So notice what I'm doing is I'm bringing you into the fear little by little, so you don't have to accept it. Instead, I invite you to understand it. And understand it directly by being with it, right? It's already there. It's already there. right? So now acceptance becomes merely a concept, doesn't it? Right? Like I have to have a good relationship with it or something. No, you don't. Oh, it's here. There it is, right? I really wish it wasn't here. That's fine too. That's part of the deal. I want to run away. Is there anything I can run away from? No. If there was, well, run. Go. Oh, there isn't. So what it's reacting to isn't an imminent danger right now, but it really believes there's a sense in me that there's something I should be afraid of. All right, what is that? All right, fear, tell me, what are you afraid of? What are you trying to protect me from? Now you're engaged with it, right? It's more than just, and because you can feel it underneath, how do I accept it? Really is, your real motivation is, if I accept it, will it go away? Right? So now there's the conflict, and the fear becomes an entity you have to fight. It's not an entity, it's a part of you. So, oh, this is just a part of me that's reacting to something that I'm not consciously aware of what it's reacting. But it knows what it's reacting to. Why don't I ask it? And we'll explore this aspect of me and myself. We'll explore together. Is there really something here to be afraid of? Or is this just an echo from the past with an assumption that I should be afraid? Right? And then you just be with, then you're now with it. It's not accepting fear as a fact of life you always, that's always going to be there. It's just, oh, well, it's part of life. Okay. The sheer admission that this is part of life means you've just accepted it. Job done. All right, now what do I do with it? Let me understand it, which is another way of saying, let me understand myself and my whole human experience. Does that help, Samet? When everything becomes something for you to explore more deeply and become curious about, everything becomes your practice. What did he say in here? That about the Buddha? What did he say here? About the Buddha? One mind. Buddha's never separate from our minds. I can't remember. I think it was the last quote here, but it's so very powerful. Yes. For this mind is the Buddha, and the Buddha is all living things. As Dozen said, to study Zen is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 things. I mean, everything. So now everything is you. Everything becomes something to investigate. You're living your practice. It's off the cushion now. Your butt's off the cushion and it's on the bus. Everything becomes the invitation to inquiry. It's, oh wow, and it becomes fun, fascinating, interesting, incredibly healing, benevolent, and open-hearted. Does that help, dear friend? Dear Mary Sykes, I find you and Adyashanti are two teachers that are not lost in the absolute. Yeah, and I was sad that he's retiring from teaching. Yeah, but his health has been troublesome for the last 15, 20 years, right? And he's finally decided he's kind of turning all the teaching over to Mukti, his wife, and it's beautiful. I wish him well. Beth says, thanks. Yes, I can see that. Very good. Just more aware of neuroses when they pop up, watching it and surrendering it. It's all happening perfectly. Yes. And just remember that you're watching them with love. Bring love into it. Bring the heart into it. So you're surrendering it all to love. not just surrendering to like an inevitability or something. You're surrendering it because it was the absence of love that created the neuroses. That absence of a sense of just being lovingly embraced for who you are. And so if you can now lovingly embrace yourself as who you are, including the neuroses, warts and all, that message gets in, love. And the neuroses cease to be needed. And they very gently and very naturally begin to fall away. Okay? Because you're not fighting anymore. There's nothing to fight. It's all you. It's all you. You are what you've been seeking. Okay? What you are looking for is where you are looking from. I am that. Thank you, GP, for your kind patience with us and your understanding of where we are at. Love you so much. Love you too, Mary. Wonderful, wonderful. I think Lisa reached out to you about a potential retreat, or at least some kind of event up in your neighborhood, which would be really great. I've put it out there that if people are willing to work with Lisa to get enough people to come, I will go pretty much anywhere to do a live event. I've just got to cover my expenses and have a little bit more left over, and I'm happy to do it. Matter of fact, I'd love to do it. My favorite thing is doing things in person. Purple Vani. Thank you, GP. You make things easy to understand. Love, Yvonne. Just for today, I will not worry. Wonderful, wonderful. And then just for tomorrow, try that too. Well, thank you. It means a lot to me. That has been my mission, to try to explain it in ways that pierce through the veil and touch the heart, and one feels a sense of alleviation from suffering. That's the point. I'm not here to feed people's minds, although intellectual precision is a part of the deal. But if it becomes too intellectual, we lose touch with our humanness. We lose touch with our suffering. We lose touch with our suffering. We lose touch with our hearts, and we lose touch with the path to awakening. Buddha went looking not for enlightenment, but for the answer to suffering. I always emphasize that. The answer was what we call enlightenment, awakening. Right? But that's not what he was after. After his own experience of self-deprivation to the extreme, to the point where he looked like death warmed over, when he finally let go of that, punishing his body and depriving it of everything, and he sat down under the Bodhi tree, the famous story. But what he said was, it had nothing to do with enlightenment. He says, I am not leaving here until I have the answer to suffering. So don't begrudge our suffering. It's how you get there. It's how enough motivation and energy and commitment gets mustered for the job. Jay, so how do people who dismiss the emotions behave? Are they telling themselves this emotion is true, like anger, for example, and just get stuck there? Well, they dismiss the emotions behave. Well, if you're dismissing it out of the absolute, out of a sense of being stuck in the absolute, you're just denying your humanness. And at some point, the cosmic 2x4 is going to come a calling. It's just the way it is. In Zen, the master would whack them with a stick or twist their nose or something like that to wake them up. But if it's just unconscious, then people just are their emotions. They have anger, they don't think about it. There's no consciousness to say, I am angry. I am angry. I am one with this angry. I'm angry, and God damn it, I have a good reason to be. And on the story goes. Yeah, but don't worry about others. Others will have to take care of themselves. There's a very, it's funny, and Ramana Maharshi was asked, well, how do we deal with others, other people, all the people? How do I deal with others? And Ramana says, there are no others. Don't ponder over that too much, okay? Would you say Eckhart and Muji are stuck in the absolute? No. Muji speaks mostly from the absolute, but my experience of him is not. Later in life, his emphasis is more there, but he's more than willing to, although he's reluctant to. He really wants the students in which he doesn't have to do that anymore. Okay. So he really looks to bring people to the absolute, to the experience of the absolute, but he's not stuck there. Neither is Eckhart. Eckhart gives all sorts of different things. He talks about manifestation. He talks about emotional pain, the whole pain body and all that sort of thing. So I don't see them that way. Nor do I see, Francis Lucille or Rupert Spira is stuck there. Oftentimes, the clips you'll see on YouTube of these people are usually focused there. But Rupert has his yoga meditations. Eckhart did a whole class on manifestation and the like. Francis Lucille does all sorts of body awareness meditations and the like. So there's plenty that aren't, right? There's well, not plenty. There's a few. There's a few that aren't stuck there, that are more than happy to come down and touch the human, to be like Christ and hang out with the publicans and the whores and the drunks and the like. More than happy to. Probably had more fun anyway. Sumed, where'd you go, Sumed? Oops. There we are. Thank you, GP. That helped a lot. I never thought about understanding emotions and sensations. I was just trying to feel them, which was not total acceptance. Yeah, you can see that the underlying motivation wasn't really to accept them. It was to, if I accept them, will they go away? So, believe me, the nervous system can sense that duplicity a mile away. You can smell it. It knows when it's genuine or not. When you are genuinely there to say, you know what, I want to accept you. I don't know how. Now you could do that. And notice if you do that, it immediately responds to that. Well, okay, that's true. You're being here with me. You don't want to be, but you're being here with me. Good. I'll take that. Right? That's an open door. And little by little, you just become more curious about it. It becomes not something that you have to run away with or get rid of or endure. It's this is life. This isn't, my emotions are not just my personal, this is all life. Everything feels this. Dogs feel fear. Mosquitoes feel fear. Everything feels a sense of fear, right? This is all life. This is life. This is what life feels like. Wow. This isn't a personal problem I have to get rid of. This is my gateway to understanding all of life, finding the true nature of all things. Not a bad thing to be the fruit of simply inquiring into a feeling that on the surface appears to be yours, but in fact is universal. Welcome to the universal. Love, love, love. Beth. Oh, thank you, Beth. Hassan, thumbs up. Thumbs ups? Yeah, thumbs up. My screen's a little bit, I have a big screen on the front here, but I'm keeping it at a distance where I'm at the questions. Please come to Scotland. See if you can organize as I can. I got somebody else in. There's the John Watson, I think it's got, well, obviously it could be different parts of the country, but maybe something in all of the UK that's accessible to everybody. That would be fun. That would be really fun. Oh, I'd love it. I would love it. I love your purple. Oh, Yvonne, I got hearts from you. Great answer about fear. Thank you. All right, glad you approve. Ah, that makes sense. It says, Jay, good. I'm here by way of a few cosmic 2x4s. Oh, man. I'm sure glad they don't leave a permanent mark, or I would be, I would be, you couldn't look at me. I would be so well beaten. Get used to it. It's okay. There's a loving hand that's wielding that the cosmic 2x4. Mary says, I'm sad about his retirement too. And don't you do that to us, please. Well, fortunately, the various kinds of things I've had to deal with have not shown up as physical illnesses for me. They have in other ways. There's been some emotional things, financial. There's, been conflicts. So the various kinds of energy patterns and habits we get into don't necessarily show up as physical conditions. And remember, some of it's karmic too. Really, there has to be just kind of a yielding to it. So I'm not saying that he's harboring anything. I have no idea. I highly doubt it, actually. Because I did meet him once, and he's magnificent. And so, for some people, everything can just go absolutely smoothly. For some people, it can be really healthy, good, great relationships, and just for some reason they can't hold on to money or something. You can have somebody who's like really good with money, and their relationships suck. So how these things appear, there's no set pattern for it. Right? It can appear as physical illnesses. It can appear as other things as well. So you just have to kind of take it as it comes. And as I was saying with fear, let the experience itself tell you what it has to say, and then be totally present, and then let it run its course. Just knowing it may not just go away. It may need to run its course. And when you totally accept something, you totally accept it, right? Okay, you're here. When you finally do allow it, right? You're here. There's no more of a sense of that I'm trying to get rid of it. I become so curious about it that it's okay that it doesn't leave right away. Eventually, it all does. So I won't marry. I'm not retiring anytime soon. No. I do have to make some changes though, to some things. So I have been supporting this whole thing out of my, little income I got, Social Security, and my savings. And I'm getting to the point where I can't do that anymore. Savings are getting down. So I'm going to have to be doing some things to make this whole homeschool and my teaching self-sufficient. That I am going to have to do. So you notice that I'm gradually changing things a bit around. So it's just what has to happen. I have no intention of stopping doing this. What else would I do? What else would I do? Yeah. If I was pulling espressos at Starbucks, I'd be talking about this to all the customers. I'd get fired very quick. So that's what I got to do. Could listen to you all night, says Ivan. I could talk all night. But eventually I do bring it to a close. Gee, I wasn't thinking along the line of an awakened person acting out their emotion. No, you're on the other side of it, which is, I just covered all the bases because I wasn't quite sure. Dale, hey to you too. Thank you, Yvonne. That is just so sweet of you to say. Jay, you are conscious in the moment of it happening. Yes. Only consciousness is going to be conscious of it. Duh. Unconsciousness is not going to be conscious of it. The moment you notice that I'm angry and you're aware of that, and not just I'm angry and I'm in it. If you're not in it, you're conscious. There's consciousness. That's awakening. Welcome. You're under the Bodhi tree. Great to be here. Beth, I'm pretty beaten and grateful for the persistence. Oh, good. Well, let's just drop out of the conflict, so you can't be beaten anymore. Right? That sense of being beaten. Take a step back. Right? Is that you? Is that who you are? Or is that just an experience you're having? Really? Just look at it like that. Who are you? The feeling of being beaten. Oh my God, yes, that's there. Right? But now who's the I? Who's having that feeling? This is what Patrul Rinpoche was talking about when he says, there's no need to search. There's no need to look for what's beating you. It's the very one who searches. It's the one who feels beaten. Simply settle without distraction directly into the one who feels beaten, and notice that it's a feeling running through the nervous system. It's a feeling, and you're not that feeling. That doesn't mean the feeling vanishes. It will. They always do, right? And you know it will at some point. But you take the opportunity to use the intensity of the moment of that feeling to focus your energy on that which is doing the feeling. Ah, well, this is different. I like this. Very good. Very good. Who is retiring? Just started to watch the stream now. This is a fire and flame. Ajishanti has retired from teaching. Yeah. He's just taking care of his body at this point, and all the teaching is going to be taken over by his wife, Mukti, who's another incredibly beautiful being. Right? Carl, gee, how do you disidentify from the body without feeling like you are neglecting? Well, you don't neglect it. I don't have to identify with my car to put gas in it. I don't have to identify with my dog in order to feed it. Right? The body's just, see it as a rescue dog. It's a dog. It's an animal. The body is animal. That's all it is. It's animal instincts, all of it, including the egoic mind. You know, it's the lower three chakras. It's just this functioning of life that's not conscious, and you are conscious of it. So take care of it, love it, enjoy it. You know, hug more, walk more, feel the breeze on your face. You know, the touch of holding hands. Feel all that stuff. And notice that you're aware of it, that it is an experience you're having and you're not it. And then take really, really good care of it. Like you would anything you love. Love the vehicle, right? You love the piano that you're playing. You're not the piano, but you need the piano to express. You love it. You keep it tuned. You keep it washed. The place where I go, my friends have a beautiful Bosendorfer piano in the living room. And because they have two cats that I watch for them, they keep it covered. This beautiful, beautiful instrument, right? But if they didn't, it would be, if they didn't keep it covered, it'd have scratches on it and the like. So they keep that, you know, that thick material covered over. And the cat lays on it, you know, the Thomasia out there and the like. So when I play it, I take the cover off. I play it, I put the cover back on again. You're protecting it. Right? It's what you have to do. Treat your body like the beautiful instrument that it is, and you won't neglect it. You'll give it what it needs. You'll give it the right foods and the right exercise and the right everything. And so that you can enjoy everything that it has to offer, because your body is life. This is how you experience your own being in some form that is not the absolute, which has no experience. It's pure knowing. There's just knowing and nothing else, and nothing to be known. So the knowingness manifests itself as the universe. We call the universe my body, but your body is the universe. Simple as that. I know it doesn't sound very simple, does it? Dale, I'm so thankful I'm here in this specific path. Yes. Isn't it great? Yes. Gratitude. Oh my God. Highly underrated. Right? be so grateful that even for a teeny tiny little bit of awakening, you're on this path. The path will unfold. It's different for everybody. Timing is different for everybody, but you're on the path. You're living the Buddha story, and at some point it will fulfill itself. It's not up to you when or how, any more than it was up to you to get on the path. You just found yourself there one day. Oh my God. And when the heart opens, there's a sense of gratitude about it. My God, look at where I'm headed. Look at what has been given to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Muji even does this. When I can't think of anything else, just thank you, thank you, thank you. To who, to what, who knows? Who cares? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Fabric of light. I had a low dose DMT experience yesterday, and I remembered it again. It was so clear, but now it feels vague, and I can't really feel it anymore. How can I make this understanding persistent? Well, that is, the benefit of plant medicine. And there's some other processes that will do it. Holotropic breathing. There's dyad work, and there's even Zen taught with dyads. The big mind also. There are ways of getting and having that experience. Right? But none of those processes allow you to keep it. There's no such thing. There's no dosage you can take of DMT that will make it stick, right? Because it's just what's being seen. Of course, it opens up deep within us the yearning for that persistent experience of that. Right? So first thing you do is bring your attention to right now, this moment. Because here's what happens, especially if you have a dramatic experience, which many people do in plant medicine. Our attention gets so focused on the quality and beauty and wonder and purity of the experience that everything in our life now becomes an attempt to recapture that. Now, what happens if my happiness and joy and oneness and all of that is sitting out here and I'm here? The entire time I'm pursuing it, I'm miserable, I'm suffering. And what's going to happen? It's going to just keep getting the same. It's like chasing a mirage. It doesn't matter how fast you run or how long or how far, it's always exactly the same distance away, because it has to be discovered not as an experience you had, but as your very self. That takes practice. And that's something you do not while on plant medicine, not while in process, not doing dyads. This is the whole point of of genuine meditation, a complete turning away of all experience. Because even the magnificence and beauty and intensity of that experience of oneness and pure clarity is an experience, which means it must come and go. The ultimate understanding is not a persistent experience. It is transcendent of all experience. It is a place that is indescribable. It is neutral and equanimous, without being either neutral nor equanimous. It is disinterested and interested at the same time. It is lovingly indifferent. This is where you get into the realm of Zen language or Sufi mystic language, where you talks about the one who knows is the one known. This message, the message is he. The message that comes from he. The message is being delivered to he. And so recognize that it was an experience that piqued, stimulated your appetite to understand the great mystery, which is yourself. And that it cannot be understood through any experience whatsoever. So you're not trying to get an experience to be persistent. That is not enlightenment. That is not, what is even possible. And thinking that it is the big mistake that people make. So they'll do one plant journey after another, one process after another, because there's this idea that somehow there's a state you're going to arrive at. There is no state you're going to arrive at. The self is not a state. It is beyond all states. It is neither this, nor that, nor both, nor neither. It is neither existent nor non-existent. This is the total ambivalence and ambiguity and mystic sounds. That it's the only way I can say it. So what I'm doing is I'm turning your attention away from the experience of clarity to recognize what was it that recognized it was clear. And what is sitting here looking, going, the mind is not clear now. Right? What's seeing that? Is that clear or confused? Is it in touch or not in touch? What recognizes that I had it and I lost it? What is that? Notice, it's neither. It's registering all experience, but it's not an experience. Is this helping you? Where did you go? Where did you go there? Now it feels vague. Right. Is this helping you? A fiber in the fabric of life. That's a mouthful. Thank you, GP. Many teachers talk down plant medicine, but you have a realistic view of it. I do. I've experienced it. Even when I was 15, I think it was the first time I took it. Took acid when it was still legal. The experience was just transcendent. And of course, I wanted to get back to it. And thinking that's how I did it. The problem with plant medicine is it's mostly done these days is it's not being done maturely. Right? The shamans that I know, I mean, they spent years, 10 years training under a shaman in Peru or in the Southwest United States with the real deal, right? Other people I've trained with, there's a training involved in it. It's where you live it. And in the shamanic training, the traditional shamanic training, the thing called the dieta, it's a diet that you do. And it's like nothing. It's like a little piece of fish, rice, and the only thing you do is live with the plant, right? So that you and the plant become one. It's a knowledge that happens that is not what most think it is. It's a direct connection to the earth in that sense. But even they recognize, in a lot of traditions, it's something you do once in a lifetime, once or twice a year, right? The vision quest of the Native Americans, in many of them, the vision quest, after the vision is attained, they experience the peyote, right? Not before, right? It doesn't give the vision. It anchors it, right? And so if we look at it like that, and we see it as an experience, we won't get addicted to it. We won't get dependent on it. We won't think of it that this is my answer. No, it isn't. It's an experience that helps you step outside of the norm just enough to recognize that, it's inward that I have to go. Because plant medicine, what is it doing? There's nobody there. It's all you. One of the first openings I had, I was 17 years old. I was on acid, really good acid, sitting in the passenger seat. Everybody I was with they were outside, and I was just sitting by myself in the passenger seat of a 68 Mustang GT. And there was a chorus line of multicolored ducks dancing across the hood, right? As real as somebody else. They had the top hats. They had the cane. And I was laughing. I thought it was really beautiful. It was really wonderful. And I thought, God, that's so cool to see that. And suddenly dawned on me that it wasn't out there, that there were no ducks on the hood of this car, that it was completely a projection of my mind. I went, what? And immediately after that, there was a thought that said, what if none of this is really out there? And I just went, and I just fell into this very spontaneous samadhi, this deep pondering. And I searched and searched, and I could find no evidence that was conclusive that said everything I experienced in my normal everyday life wasn't anything more than a projection of my mind. And when I realized that, and I kind of came back, it was all gone. The hallucinations were gone. Everything was gone. It completely transformed my experience. And it was 2 years later that I had that experience on the bridge. But what it did do at that point is send me into a tailspin. I went from being, high and having fun all the time, and all the dark stuff started to come up. Just all the deprivation, all the pain, all the anger, to the point within 2 years, I had become so cynical and so dark that even my best friend said to me, "Greg, go away. I can't stand being around you. Nobody can." Shoop. I completely withdrew into myself. And it was a few months later that I finally had that experience on the bridge that that changed everything. Anyway, I hope that, sorry guys. I hope that covers it for you. A fiber. I'm just going to call you fiber, okay? Always get your fiber. It's very healthy. Oneness is the one known. Oneness is the one knowing. It is the knower, the known, and the knowing. It's the one who knows. It's the one who is known. The seeker seeks themselves, don't they? What does a dyad work, GP? It's too much to go into explanation about. It's DYAD, and it's a conversation between two people. It goes back and forth, but one person does nothing but hold space. Don't even react, and somebody else, like in Zen, when there's a zenways.org that does it, where I did the retreat, you're meditating on your koan. Okay. In the case of me, it was who am I? Who am I? Meditating deeply. And then what you're doing is you're simply just, whatever's coming up, you're saying it out loud, and there's somebody else there not reacting to anything. It's not like a poker face. You're just being present. So there's no conversation going on, but it helps you stay focused. There's other ways of doing the dyads. That's one way. I've experienced another different way, but it's a way of simply allowing yourself to probe. Take a simple question like, who am I? Or a question like, why am I here? What's the meaning of my life? And rather than scattered around, that's the only question. So the person says, well, tell me the meaning of your life. And then you probe that one question for a period of time, and then you switch sides, and it goes back and forth for 40 minutes, right? 5 minutes each. 5 minutes you're probing, 5 minutes you're just bearing witness. And it's another way of getting out of the regular chatter of your mind into a deeper place, which is what plant medicine, if done in the right set and setting with the right leadership, will do for you. But you can't maintain it. That's not the point. So that's dyad work. Yeah, I thought that you had experienced it. You seem to know a lot about it. Yeah, I have. Matter of fact, I know some Buddhist teachers who are actually very intelligently using plant medicine at Buddhist meditation retreats for the express purpose of giving people who may have been meditating for years and never actually touched into that place of just total clarity. But again, even when people do through meditation, the integration can take a long time. It's a long way from that first glimpse, you know, sitting in a 68 Mustang to Buddhahood. It's a long road. Jay, the family reunion for the first time. Another heart from French. Love you, GP. So glad you're here. Thank you, non-duality. I'm glad I'm here too. Big hugs from Yvonne. Love you, G. Everybody loves you, G. We love you. Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Well, I'm going to let it go now before I can't control my tears. So, thank you, everyone, for being here. All my love to you.